What a lot of people are not aware of is that the swastika is prehistoric. It's found on 5 continents around the world and dates back approximately 10,000 years. It is found in Europe, Africa, Asia, North and South America, all before transoceanic sea travel was thought to be possible. Let me preface this whole conversation with this. Fuck Hitler. He stole the symbol, which was a symbol of peace, and he bastardized it. So this right here, I took this photo. This is real. And I'm like, well, this is fascinating. I put this up on Twitter and I said, did Hitler know something about ancient history that we don't? And this was a sincere question. Everyone started calling me a Nazi. I was spreading dangerous Nazism for it. This is a grown-up conversation. Right. Hitler was evil, but he was intelligent, and the Nazis were arguably the most technologically advanced country at that time in World War II. And for some reason, for reasons that I cannot find a definitive answer on, is why was Hitler so into archaeology? They call it Nazi archaeology.
Spaniard Francisco de Orellana accidentally managed to travel the entire way across the Amazon in the 1560s. He was with 20 other guys. They were in a boat and they were going hunting, but they put the boat on the Amazon River and the Amazon River wouldn't let them come back. They started off in Colombia and finally they ended up on the Atlantic coast of South America. Well, on the way through, they observed enormous cities. They observed evidence of high civilizations of the Amazon. He reported it, but he was disbelieved. It was thought that he was making it up, and it's these new LiDAR surveys that have confirmed that he was absolutely correct. And God knows what else might be found in the Amazon if the work were actually done. Archaeologists roll their eyes every time you say the word Atlantis. Plato, which is the earliest surviving reference to Atlantis, puts it this way, that his ancestor Solon visited Egypt. And we know about that visit. It's historically recorded. That visit to Egypt was in 600 BC. And there Solon claimed to have been told by Egyptian priests about this great advanced civilization that once existed, but that angered the gods and was destroyed in an enormous flood. And Solon asked those Egyptian priests, when did this happen? And they said, 9,000 years ago. That's 11,600 years ago. And it's exactly the date of what is called Meltwater Pulse 1b, one of the biggest single rises overnight in sea level that ever occurred. So if Plato made it up, it's really weird that he picked a date that is precisely a date that coincides with the latest geological evidence on cataclysmic sea level rise at the end of the Ice Age.
There's an ancient wall in Montana. Some people have tried to say is a natural rock formation, and almost anybody looks at it and goes, you're out of your mind. That's 100% placed in stacked stones. It's in a straight line. They're stacked on top of each other. They form fit together.
They're carved and transported.
And I think it's several football fields long. Also, a lot of it is covered in dirt, and if this thing is 25, 30,000 years old, who knows how long it's been there? Who knows how deep it even goes? The Sage Wall, that's what it is. So what is that all about? That was on private land, and apparently originally it was covered in trees and they cleared the area. So initially people were thinking that it was some sort of a natural formation, but then as they cleared the area, they're like, wait a minute, what is this?
Pinkerton world map, which was drawn in the year 1818, and it was based on the latest navigational information at that time. What's missing from the map, entirely missing, is Antarctica. There's just a hole at the bottom of the world. There's nothing there. The reason that Antarctica is not there is that our civilization hadn't discovered Antarctica in 1818. Actually, we discovered it in 1819, and that's when it starts appearing on modern maps. The problem is that Antarctica appears repeatedly on these much older maps, and it appears in the right place and a bit bigger than it is today, but very much as it looked during the last ice age. So what all of this suggests to me is that the world was mapped and explored by a global seafaring culture with a level of technology that was at least equivalent to ours at the end of the 18th century during the ice age.
You guys know the story of Michelangelo when he was painting the Sistine Chapel? Most people assume he was lying down, but in fact, the artist and his assistants used wooden scaffolds that allowed them to stand upright and reach above their heads. All that art that they have over there, it's so fascinating.
There's also that painting, The Creation of Adam, where it shows God creating Adam and all the angels, and he's sitting inside of the perfect anatomical illustration of a human brain, if you look at it.
Whoa, that's bananas.
And it's got like the prefrontal cortex, the brain stem, the visual cortex, it's all there, and he's creating Adam.
Look at that. That's weird, man.
It is weird, isn't it?
It's pretty close.
There's a group of people that say that dragons were real, and I'll explain. So around the same time period in, China, South America, Africa, all these different, Rome, all these places, images depicted people fighting dragons. Every dragon was slightly different, but it was all a giant, scaly animal that could fly. When you break that down, you think about the fact that large birds had a hard time being fossilized because their bones are so porous. They have like hollowish bones. They break down very easily and they don't fossilize. The group that says this, basically they're saying the evidence is the reason there's no fossils of dragons is because they had bird bones and they were actually very delicate animals. A small population of these giant flying lizards existed and basically encompassed all these different countries where they all depicted fighting dragons in their own way, and they were all killed off by, knights or whatever it is, and then didn't fossilize.
What? They found the tomb of the first emperor of China. As they uncovered more and more and more, they found a literal army of these terracotta statues of soldiers, and they're terrified to go into the tomb because there's all these writings about it having rivers of mercury and booby trap, and it's supposed to be like unbelievable riches. High levels of mercury were found in the soil of the tomb mound. Also, the emperor is well documented for building monumental statues in human form during his reign. They're so concerned, like trying to send a scientist through there and trying to open it up. Even 2,200 years later, some fucking Indiana Jones shit.
There's much more of Göbekli Tepe under the ground. There's actually about 50 times as much as has already been excavated, which is under the ground still. They know it's there because they've been over the whole site with ground-penetrating radar, and what they're seeing is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these huge 20 to 50-ton T-shaped megalithic pillars. Just as somebody went to enormous lengths to create this site, they also went to enormous lengths to bury it. Teams of men and women with buckets filled with rubble and stones, filling it in and covering it up.
So strange, and there's no guesses or theories as to why they did this?
There's not. It's just a fact that it happened.
Somebody was flying by what they thought was a volcano in the 30s, and he thought, hey, somebody built that. Wait a minute, there's 4 by 8 foot bricks. That's man-made. And it is literally the biggest pyramid in the world. It's bigger than the ones in Egypt, and it's in Guatemala. 20 years ago, I went down there with the archaeologist, a guy named Richard Hansen, and he's down there with his family. He's been working tirelessly for like 30 years, trying to extract this pre-classic city from the jungle. All the pyramids in Tikal would fit inside the one big pyramid in El Mirador. And so that tells you that the pre-classic civilization was bigger and grander and more sophisticated than the civilizations that came after it.
When the Mayans were running things, like who could have ever thought when they had such an incredibly sophisticated society, unbelievable construction, like the stuff that they had built, that one day you would just walk through there and there's nothing. Nothing and nobody.
There are 3 places in the world which are really lacking in the investigation right now. One of them is the Amazon, 5.5 million square kilometers, very little archaeology done. Another is the Sahara Desert. The Sahara Desert, tough place to work. I can understand why there's little archaeology done there, but the Sahara Desert was green during the Ice Age. It had a completely different climate regime. We should consider the possibility that missing parts of the human story are there. And then under the continental shelves, because sea level rose 400 feet. These are 3 domains that archaeology has largely not investigated. They say, well, why would we spend the money on marine archaeology? It's much better to spend it on looking for shipwrecks rather than looking for signs of a lost civilization, because we archaeologists know there was no lost civilization. That's the argument for the resources there. The same with the Amazon and the same with Sahara Desert.
When you look at the legend of Noah's Ark and the flood, I'm not suggesting that there was a flood that covered every mountain on Earth, and nor am I suggesting that there was a boat that housed every species of animal on Earth. However, if Noah's Ark existed, many believe that it was crashed onto Mount Ararat, which is also in Turkey. And something fascinating is that in the Bible, in Genesis 8:20, some of the first verses after Noah emerged from the flood, is that he was said to have constructed an altar to the Lord where he sacrificed some of every clean animal and some of every clean bird. Göbekli Tepe is in Turkey, and every single one of those pillars annotates animals. And some have suggested that it could be Noah's altar. Now, that could be one reason why they wouldn't want to excavate it, is because Turkey is an Islamic country, and if there was some Christian religious belief that was corroborated, they might not want that to happen.
Denisova Cave, it's another example of a missing chapter in the human story. They left behind certain physical objects which are extremely hard to explain. One of them is a green stone bracelet. A hole has been drilled through the bracelet. Then the archaeologists started to take a look in detail at the drill marks on that hole, and what they discovered was a huge anomaly, that was drilled with a stable, fixed drill, and it was drilled at extremely high speed. This is thought to be 40 or 50,000 years old. There is not supposed to have been any such technology in that period that was capable of drilling with a stable, fixed drill. There are also incredible, very fine needles, bone needles that the Denisovans made, very long ones, which suggest that they were stitching very heavy stuff together, and the suggestion has been, were they making skin boats, for example?
If we found out the Ark of the Covenant was, in fact, a real object, and we know where it is, and it does match the description in the Bible, that kind of changes everything.
I think it was an actual object.
And you think it was some nuclear something or another?
I think it's what is rightly described as an out-of-place artifact, because if you look at the description in the book of Exodus, the very precise dimensions of it, it's got a layer of gold, it's got a layer of wood, it's got another layer of gold. It's very precisely specified, like a blueprint in the book of Exodus. And then it does all this stuff. It shoots out jets of fire, and it kills 50,000 Philistines in the city of Ashdod. They open the Ark of the Covenant to look inside, and suddenly everybody in that city is dying, and what they're dying of is cancerous tumors. This is described in the Old Testament. So it's intriguing that this object is so precisely specified and is reported to have done these terrible things.
It's just insane that we know where it is.
I believe Ethiopia has a very strong claim to it, but that's all I can say because I've not seen it myself. There's another fascinating figure from La Venta, one of the Olmec sites, which is the earliest ever image of a plumed or feathered serpent. Sitting in the middle of it is this human figure who's holding this strange bag in his hand. And those identical bags are found in ancient Sumer in the hands of individuals who were considered to be civilization bringers. And they also show up on Pillar 43 at Göbekli Tepe. So I wonder if we're looking at a sort of badge of office of a group of civilizers who traveled around the world trying to bring back to life a lost civilization.